Welcome to another edition of Laugh, Lend and Eat with your host Bobby Nagmi. Bobby is the National Sales Manager for First Option Mortgage, as well as a contributing writer for multiple mortgage magazines. For this episode, we have Christine Beckwith, founder of 2020 Vision Your Success, along with a panel of her coaching staff. With coaching becoming more and more popular in the mortgage industry, we wanted to know what it takes for a mortgage professional to win in this market. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat the podcast. And my, oh my, we got a big episode here this time, guys. This is going to knock everyone out of the ballpark. I'm telling you. I got the coaches, including Christine Beckwith herself from 2020 Vision for Success. So, guys, how are y'all doing?
Great.
How do you guys like being on the other end of the phone of this call now, huh? You guys are normally on the other side asking questions.
Yeah, this is great.
So
we're all having podcast envy of your studio lighting because you just way more professional.
It just means I got more time on my hands, Christine. That's all. It doesn't mean anything more than that. So we have Christine Beckwith on here. We have Ray Beefus. We have Michael Hammond, Michael David Chapman, and Ruth Lee. So all these guys are going to be answering questions for us. Some of it is related to mortgage industry. Some of it is not going to be related to mortgage industry. But the bottom line is we're going to try to dig deep into coaching mortgage professionals. We're going to try to find out, what's going on. I'm going to give you guys a little secret. The reason I was really adamant on doing this, this is the 24th episode, by the way, right? And when I first started this podcast a year ago, last January, my goal was to do 24 episodes in the year 2020. And obviously we all know what happened in 2020, right? That, 2020 happened.
Yeah.
And so here we are. We got to the 24th episode. As I was getting closer to getting the 24th, I was like, you know what? I want to be with Christine and all the coaches and share with you all the success that we're having on Laugh, Lend, and Eat, because you guys are instrumental in pushing me and making me go outside of my normal boundaries. And if I wasn't coaching with you guys, I don't know if I would have made it this far. So this is more about you guys pushing me and succeeding with me on this 24th episode of Laugh, Lend, and Eat. So I appreciate you guys and all the work that you guys have done with me the past year.
Yay. It's like 24 karat gold, that's what comes. Did anyone else think of that when he said 24? I think that's great. I love that you did this. I think you have a really creative mind. You've always had an edge for marketing. I know that's your flair and that's what you navigate to and what you do so well. And I've seen the success, and even with the, I know we're on air now, but even with the double berry booking, which is like that, you're going to have to just stay tuned in to hear about that. But, incredible podcast and incredible amount of guests. And I'm super thrilled that you picked us and all the people that are on here. I'm grateful for everybody else that is on here. Literally sitting here in the last 24 hours, just really thinking about like how far we've come. And I know one thing we all have in common is the desire for our own growth and the desire for us to all find, more and answers and stretching. And, we all believe in that. And we all give that at the same time. But I'm just grateful because, picking people this year was not easy when I decided that I was going to expand the coaching menu. And so, I definitely felt like it was really important that I get the right people that are culturally aligned, with the same things that I want. And so the one common element, I think, with everybody that you're going to see on here, and this is a small representation. I mean, the coaching staff is big now.
Yeah.
And I think we are at a point where we have 6 women and 5 men, which is incredible. And I will just tell you that, absolutely all of these guys have kindness. They're genuine. And they're really experienced at what they're talking about.
Well, you know what, Christine? You kind of preempted a question I had, so I'm glad you started this. It's one of the best things about having Christine on the show. She just starts, boom, and then we have a conversation.
Never be short of words with me.
You're like the center of, Success 2020 or 2020 Vision for Success coaching, right? I got to figure out how to say that the right way. What's the biggest challenge you see for your company going into 2021, right? Because, you're a coach, right? obviously you have your own game plan for 2021. I know you, and I know you wrote down a 36-month plan like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? That's not being executed.
Yeah.
One of the things about writing a plan is things change. So what are you seeing as a challenge for you and your coaching school going into 2021?
Yeah, I think that the number one threat with 2021 coming for the company and any time ever that I look back in my career is evolving, because the landscape changes as we, and it certainly has this year. And so that certainly became true. And we did have to pivot, and we did have to change, certain sales funnels and certain, lead mechanisms, and the way that we reached, people had to really shift. We were already virtual, but we really had to take away the speaking and conventions and booths and places that you intermingle with people, and insert the magazines, which become a national reach. And so there was a lot of pivoting. So the short answer is evolution. I know that in order and relativity, I think that we have to be meaningful to people's lives. And so the hardest thing I feel like I've been doing, and I can't wait, like I don't want my life to end, but I feel like at the end of my life, somewhere is going to be a deep sigh of like no longer having to stand on my head and clap my feet to impress people. And so I'm not saying I feel like I wake up that people expect me to impress them. I'm telling you that even with people volunteering to get in line to drink the water of self-development, they don't always want to drink it.
Yeah.
And so that is absolutely the hardest thing as a business owner is keeping people engaged.
Michael Hammond, let me come to you. What do you think the reason is that most people don't want to be coached? Because it was a question by the way, you're muted, so you may want to mute before you answer the question. But one of the things that I've always been guilty of also myself, you know what I mean? And recently I talked to someone else about it. Most of us that have been in the business for 3, 4, 5 years, I've been in 26 years now, right? All of a sudden it feels like you don't need a coach, right? So what is the reluctance, Michael? What do you think?
Well, I think some of the reluctance is people think they've arrived, or they think that their ego has to, they have to have all the answers. They've risen to a certain level within an organization. They have a certain title, and they feel now with that title, they have to have all the answers, and they have to be able to just handle whatever situation's thrown at them. And what I've learned is we have to be lifelong learners. You look at professional athletes, and every one of them has a coach. You look at golfers, and they have a putting coach, and they have a short game coach, and they have a driving coach. You look at any sport, any top line athlete, they still need to coach. You still need to learn. And business isn't any different. I think, unfortunately, too many people think that as they're climbing up the corporate ladder, they've figured out all of the answers. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I do a ton on social media, and I'm taking a LinkedIn masterclass right now so that I can continue to fine tune my skills and improve. And I think if you talk to any of the other coaches on here, they're lifelong learners. And I think that's the key. If you find a lifelong learner, they're always looking for a way to improve, to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. Ray, I mean, I saw your title. You were like, now if I get this wrong, I apologize. I didn't take good notes on this one. I just figured I knew you guys, so I could just jump in. That's on me. But I think your title was executive life coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And so you're dealing with, I'm going to just say this, like a higher end, maybe more executive people. So is it difficult to open up their mind to coaching? Or, I mean, do you get the same resistance as a loan officer, or is it the same thing that you're finding?
Well, I think the more success somebody has, even at lower levels, the more they think, I'm golden. Look at all the money I've made. The problem isn't me. And yet we all hit ceilings. And that's especially true, for people who are building small businesses. Now the economy is fire hosing the mortgage industry. So many people, looking to do something new with their house. And at points of stress, we start to bump in the limits of what we know and what our skills are. And so if I've been very successful, my tilt might be to blame others, blame the circumstances. And so coaches come along and just say, are you the best you can be? And oftentimes that's where the gold is. But yeah, success sort of, encourages us or tilts us toward looking for people to blame as opposed to looking for opportunities to grow.
Sometimes it feels like people get rewarded for bad behavior also in this business. Like, I mean, I saw Casey Crawford recently on something else, and he was talking about, I'll tell you a secret, there's a lot of money in this business. People are making a lot of money, right? And I do look at this and I say, there is so much money in this business, especially the mortgage business, right, that I'm talking about in real estate, that sometimes our bad behavior gets rewarded. And we're like, you know what? I don't need Christine Beckwith to tell me how to do business. I'm doing it. I'm closing, 7 units a month, and I'm making 150 bips on $6 million, probably 6 million is too much for 7 units, but 2 million a month, right? In production, I'm making 150 bips. I'm happy. How do you wake that guy up and say, dude, this is, it's not going to last, right? We all know the refi is going to come to an end, but there's something bigger and better beyond this.
I definitely think that there's a lot of people that think coaching is for non-producers. I think there is a segment of mindset out there that's like, you get a coach to increase your production and only your production. And certainly when you build a coaching firm, if enterprises are going to hire your firm, you better know the way to production, because the core of what coaching in banking and brokering is definitely going to lead towards production. But to understand what makes people productive, you have to also look at all the outliers, and there is so much there to unpack. Are they mentally happy? Michael Chapman is our on team counselor, and he is dealing with all kinds of different scenarios. And so, but these are things that sabotage success. He said it best, what sabotages your success. And so his coaching may have nothing to do with mortgage originations so much as, let's talk about the things getting in the way of you having a functional work day and a focus on your business plan and that sort of thing. And so, we're just, of the belief, and I think, looking at all things that, I named this vision for success because I think everybody's is different. And that's the first thing we identify when people come here. We make them do an exercise that actually helps us understand what their future goals are. And we have a ton. This year's a great example. Everybody's got production this year. It's hard to not shoot fish in a barrel this year. And so you're accidentally picking up fish in the bucket. And so I would just tell you, we've been busier this year than ever because of all of those outlier effects on the production being so heavy that it's hurting teams, that there's EQ problems, that there's frustration, there's exhaustion. And there's a lot of things. How do I scale this fast? How do I satisfy the servicing side? And because of that, our phone is ringing. So to circle back, I would tell you that I spend very little time trying to convince people why they should coach. If I get on a sales call and somebody's asking me to convince them, even if it's a first-time person wanting to coach, and I'm happy to explain what coaching is and what it does and what we offer. But if I have to impress upon a person the reason for self-development, they're probably not ready to receive it. And I'm actually good with the pass on that, because those are the people that end up wobbling, down the road, and they don't quite understand exactly what they are. So many people are welcome to receive it,
So Michael Chapman, my rabbi. I know he calls himself the business minister, but I call him my rabbi. Because this guy, just for the record, bailed me out of the deepest hole I'd been in my 26 years in the mortgage business. I give all credit to this guy right here. I love him dearly. Ray Beef has used a word that I thought was pretty interesting coming from a coach. So this is what I do. I'd write notes down, right? He used the word limits, people's limits. And the one thing that I realized when I work with you is you have an ability to find people what's limiting them and then have them focus on it and get it unblocked. Where does that come from, that vision that you have to find people's limitations?
Well, Ray is right. I'm sure if I listened to 25 minutes of Ray's story, Ray's probably had that. I don't want to put words into Ray's world or mouth, but one thing that's great about and this is what separates typically coaching from other things that help people like therapy is is relatability. I mean, you think about the best coaches, they typically, I mean, I'll probably get rocks on me in front of people. You think about a Bill Belichick. I mean, what can you even tell me what he accomplished on field? You probably can't, right? So typically it's relatability. So for me, like I can just hear myself a lot of times, and it doesn't, Christine said it, like, I don't know what it means to write alone in your space. I'm sure I can learn, but I can hear when people are living in the words of I can't, I have to, versus I am, versus I get to. And it sticks out for me because I learned so much of that, that powerless victim, those victim words early in my life, just because no one told me differently. I mean, it's just the way I mean, you grow up in this world without somebody like giving you some guidance. I mean, it's tough to find, it's tough to not find victimhood. And so there are legitimate, and this is some of the work that there's legitimate stuff where we've been victimized. And then there's some that we just, like I did for years, you love victimizing yourself.
Is there
It's
a
more
blueprint?
comfortable.
Is there a blueprint that you can see most professionals that are successful kind of trap themselves in a blueprint of mental torture, I guess?
I don't know if it's a blueprint, but this may open up a can and may find some disagreements here. It's things that we've all heard, that I heard, like, here's one: follow your heart. Out of context, that's like the worst advice ever, because like the heart is fickle. Like, she doesn't think I'm good looking anymore, so I'm gonna go follow my heart. I mean, like I understand that, awesome. Our heart. I mean, it's just terrible advice. Follow your heart. It's like, it just sounds
I hate when they tell me do the right thing, do the next right thing. It's like, I don't know what the next right thing. So I'm asking you, what's the next right thing? Drives me bonkers.
Here's one: kindness it doesn't cost anything to be kind. And I'm thinking, no wonder we don't have more kindness. Like, it's we've lowered the bar with these, and I'm guilty of it, these Instagram anecdotes. I mean, I get intrinsically what that means. If I'm kind to Michael Hammond, it's free to him. But if I had to swallow my ego or not roll my eyes, you think about the couple at dinner.
Yeah.
She rolls her eyes in front of the two kids because he's doing it again. I mean, that's an act of kindness to not do that. That's not free. She's got to bite her effing tongue.
So question back to you, just real quick, if you can answer this. If you can, I don't know. How do you pinpoint those things when you're talking to a professional? How is that ability? Where do you get that ability to say, boom, here's your problem? I'll be very blunt, very candid with you guys. Michael said to me, Fabi, you get offended too easily. I was like, me offended? Never.
As you're offended by him saying that you get offended.
Right. Saying that.
And it was like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, shit, I am offended all the time.
You offended me.
How do you do that, Michael? Tell the group here. I mean, what? I mean, no one ever told me that before in all my career.
I used to be so offended. I lived 3 and something decades in a constant perpetual state of what you had in a season, I had in a lifetime. And to be fair, I had a good reason to be like that early on, but to stay like that past the age of 20, 21, it was trained behavior. Yeah. We live in an offensive world, and I think it's just, and Leslie, I usually try to, I don't remember being that direct with you. I thought I asked a few questions first, but
no, you were very direct. I liked it. I needed it.
You can hear it.
I think people relate to that.
Yeah. Right, Christine? I mean,
I like someone said yesterday that I am describing my personality as a dichotomy. And they said that I said, are you saying bipolar or are you saying dichotomy? And they said that one side of me is like super kind, nice, genuine, emotional. And then I got this hard edge, right, on the other side. But they went on, I let them finish, of course. And they said that, that's probably really well, served in business. And it's true. There has to be limits. I think, Ray and I were actually talking yesterday a little bit about assertiveness and its benefits in business. And, I think there has to be, I feel like this, I will be assertive with kindness. Like I will assert myself, but I will try to do that in a manner that is complimentary as I can. And so, none of us are perfect, but I think in the world of leadership and coaching, that these people that are coming to us, my greatest leaders, I'll flip this around a different way. Instead of it being about what I'm giving to others in advice, in my lifetime, just as Michael just said, in his lifetime, he had to unlearn certain behaviors. In my lifetime, my greatest growth came from those leaders that hit me between the eyes with the hard stuff. And that's when I stopped, even in hurt, offense, retreating, and would sit with it and often come to terms with the truth of the statement, and then, allow myself to process it and come back. I knew at some intersection in my life, I was going to be the unteachable if I didn't prove that beyond my ego, I could take critical advice and apply it and change. And so I think I was 27 years old when I got hit with a really hard piece of professional advice from a guy I really looked up to. And it killed me. And I can remember just being, in a bad place for a few days. And then I came back and watching his reaction to my evolution and willingness to try new things that he said I needed to develop, and his excitement that I was receiving that, was one of the greatest lessons, because I realized then that his heart had always been there. What I thought was hurting words and was kind of mean and offensive, he was saying to me in a loving manner because he wanted to see me be successful. And that lesson actually taught me how to be more assertive myself, because as long as I'm driving from a purpose-filled place without sounding corny, if my benefit in giving someone a piece of hard criticism is to help them be a better person or let them know the way that they are or something, then that's good. I'll never say something that takes away from somebody,
Ruth, we haven't hit you yet, so we'll come to you, Ruth. I know you've been nodding and laughing on these I love these little tiles because I can see everybody, right? Right now, you are, I think, the newest coach for 2020, right?
I am.
And I think you, from what I could tell from your bio, you kind of focus on loan officers and taking the next level, or I'm totally off base there.
Career succession.
Career succession, okay.
Talking to people about how they, young managers, middle-level managers, as well as getting to the C-suite, there's always this tiered evolution in how you build on your skills. And, you start as a younger manager. Some people get blasted right to the C-suite. Unfortunately, they're really challenged. And I want to go back to one of the things that y'all said. But my approach, and the reason that I avoided coaching, was fear of weakness.
Okay.
This grand fear, because I'm a high potential executive, I'm supposed to have those answers. And to say out loud that I don't know them means that I'm showing weakness. And my fear was that was all of a sudden going to break down this whole thing that I have built around my career. And, I'm always the one with the answers. And that was when I read something from Christine, which was about imposterism. I completely broke. I was like, wow, she just pointed right at my soul and said, stop being mean to yourself. Stop sitting there and thinking that you're an imposter. And especially as a woman, I've kind of gone through all of these where, you have to claw and fight, etc. But, where I really want to be what I want to expose people to is how to challenge their assumptions, how, really to build on, it's not weakness that says that you need more. It's actually a form of strength. And that has been a huge turn for me since I've started working with Christine in 2020 Vision.
So Ruth, in your situation, I mean, when you're in that fear, when you're in that mode, Ruth Lee herself, right? Are you still asking for coaches' help in your life as you're going through this motion?
Well, that was kind of the reason that I chose coaching. I felt like I was at a place where I just needed to stretch myself. And, I've done really well as an executive. I feel really confident in that role. But there was something inside where my level of satisfaction with it had started to really plateau. And so I felt like it was time for me to hit this next level. And Michael Hammond, I'm sure you're like pointing at your next level. But, it's for me, I knew that I'm 49. I'm not finished with my career, and neither am I at my pinnacle. And so I started challenging my assumptions and really started to do some work on myself. And that was another thing, is I felt guilty about investing in myself. I felt really guilty that I was taking away from my family by investing in myself by doing this.
Okay. So Ray, are you still using coaches?
Yeah.
This is a question of the whole panel, by the way.
Well said, Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, doctors have doctors, dentists have dentists, coaches have coaches
Wow.
in order to stay on top of their stuff.
I've picked Ray as a coach. I joked with him. I demoted him the other day on a call because I said, we're like hairdressers. We do each other's hair on our off time. And Ray's like, I did Christine's hair. And so like, you know, and everyone laughed. But, you know, it's that theory. I have a coach. You know, I'm not afraid to say I have a counselor. I have, you know, these guys. And I definitely approach, you know, my life in a way. I definitely feel like you can't be a good coach unless you're willing to receive as well. I don't know that I would have ever ventured into this field if I hadn't had some really incredibly humbling things occur in my life, where I always knew I loved to teach. I always had a, you know, penchant for teaching and training and that sort of thing. But I was much more attracted to the shiny objects of money and trophies and all of the things that the banking world coughs up when you get into sales. And so I rode that road for a really long time and pushed my limits and found my way. And along the way, you know, the car ran off the cliff a couple times, thanks to bad markets, you know, and, you know, you crashed the car and you had to pick the pieces back up and start over. And I would ask God in those times in my life, why is this happening right now? And I had some personal things in my life. You know, my mom fell from a brain aneurysm and, you know, terrible process of, you know, coming back. And my father got prostate cancer. And I have a sister that's fighting terminal lung cancer that's only a couple of years older than me. And, you know, these things that happen in life, you know, tend to bring you to your knees and also calibrate your eyesight towards what success in life really means. And when those things happened for me, it was life-changing, and it took me off the road I was on and put me on this road. And so now, you know, I feel like my cup runneth over, really, and I mean that in the most, you know, intimate way. Like my ROI daily is coming from, you know, counseling and coaching and, you know, behind all of this, you know, extra stuff that we've created that I'm so proud of that we have for professionals in our space. You know, we built a real curriculum school, and that challenged me, you know, having to get in the studio and think of, okay, in 30 years, what were the greatest lessons I would need to, you know, teach, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So.
Michael Hammond, let me come to you because I think this is kind of in your forte, or wheelhouse, I should say. I'll never forget this. About 4 years ago, I'm at a regional meeting. I was a regional at that time. And they were going around the room asking questions and stuff. And one of the regionals, which I'll not name at this time, he said to the whoever our boss was at the time, that he had his business plan in his head, and he made this little, like, you know what I mean? That it was right here. This is where he was business plan. I haven't forgot that, right? Like in all these years, I can still see that in my head, and I still chuckle about that. How important is it to get it out of our head and actually put it on a piece of paper?
It's vitally important. And so many times as I'm doing the coaching sessions, people say, I want to grow. I want to add people, and they don't have any of it mapped out. And until you start putting it down on paper, until you start mapping it out, you really don't have focus and clarity, right? You have this gut instinct. It used to drive me crazy. I would lead a lot of sales teams, and the salesperson would say, oh, that deal feels really good. And then I would ask them some quantitative things. Did you do a demo yet? Well, no. Have you talked about pricing yet? No. Well, then shut up. It's not a deal. That deal's going nowhere. I don't care about your gut instinct that it feels good. And I think that happens with a lot of people as they try growing their business. If it's all up here, for one, it's probably you don't have the focus or the clarity that you need. Two, you really have not created a duplicatable system. What happens if you get hit by a bus? What happens if, in today's world, you came up with COVID? Could the person second in charge in your organization run with that? Nope. Sorry, it was in your head. You didn't have it written down. You don't have it mapped out. And so if you look at the bigger picture and say, I want to create duplicatable processes, I want to create long-term sustainability and growth, you've got to start putting it down in paper. You've got to start visualizing where this is going, and then you got to look for help. And when you have that in paper, some of the best coaching sessions I've had is when you start asking those questions and they come back to you the next session and they're like, see what I did? I mean, I mapped all of this out, and they're like, hey, you were right. I don't need another processor, but I need a new loan coordinator because I'm only using a processor for 4 hours a day, but my loan coordinator is working 13 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the light bulb moment happens because they took the time to put it in writing and they have it mapped out.
Keeping on that same topic, is it critical when we put the business plan down on paper? Is that how we can then scale upward? So if the business plan says I'm going to do 5 loans a month, this is how I can then, in my head at least, I can see going from 5 units to 20 units, and this is what that I need to scale up from there. Is that right or wrong?
It's part of the process, right? When you start putting it in writing, you've got to remember that you're on this journey. So just because I write it down and say, okay, I'm going to hit 2 billion this year, that in and of itself, hope itself is not a strategy. You then got to figure out what are the steps, and you start working your way backwards. Okay, if I'm going to get from 5 million to 20 million, if I'm going to get from 20 million to 100 million as an organization, that may be the big, hairy, audacious goal. But then from there, you've got to start working your way backwards to how am I going to get there? What are the steps involved in making that happen? So you've got to have it in writing. It's a starting point, but then you've got to also understand that it's a living, breathing document. If we asked any of the coaches on this session today, how did your goals look like when you wrote them down at the start of 2020, and how have they changed today?
Yeah.
Radically. We've all had to pivot. We've all had to shift and change if we're going to stay relevant and keep things moving forward.
That's kind of a loaded question in 2020, though, isn't it? Any other year, you could say pivot, but I think in 2020, everyone ducked, fell, and then got back up again.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, too, we can say that because everyone's dealing with COVID.
Right.
But if you take COVID out of the equation, everyone else is dealing with something.
Right.
Whether it's a challenging situation with the spouse, the loss of a loved one, someone else is ill, your kid's not necessarily listening to what you're doing. I think we can all relate because we all are experiencing COVID. We may be experiencing it a little bit differently, but every year, the mortgage industry, what happens if your whole business, if 90% of your business is refi in 2020? Take COVID out of the equation. Is 2021 going to look different?
Yeah, good point. Great point. Ray, what happens when you got a guy whose whole life has fallen apart? He was an executive. His whole life fell apart because he made the bad business plan that you guys all signed off on. Where do you take that guy?
Well, I mean, you got to start somewhere. So you help them prioritize, what are the pieces that are not working anymore? What's the system that's breaking down? And then how do we prioritize our steps into the future? But with every client, I'm asking what's most important at this moment in her life or his life, and then what's standing in the way. And then thirdly, the big question is what makes it hard for this person? So we have 6 people and, this is hard for this person. It wouldn't be hard for other people. So what's making it hard for that person? And so I think all of us as coaches start with the person. Where are they at? What's in their way? And what is it about their beliefs or their assumptions or their practices that's making it hard right now? And then as Michael did with you, I mean, we offer hope that as we start taking specific steps into the future, you can put anything back together. Yeah.
I've always loved this one saying that once you hit bottom, that's the greatest place to be because there's only one way to go up. It's
Indeed.
up.
Indeed.
So bottom is not a bad place to be sometimes. Ruth, accountability. When I think about coaching, that's the first word that I think about is accountability. I mean, how do you hold your, clients? Is that the right way to say this, guys? Clients? I've never thought about that word before. How do you hold your clients accountable? I mean, if they say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, what's the process that you're going to hold them accountable to X, Y, and Z?
Well, and as a new coach, I don't have a lot of clients that I've walked through this process, but in my career, I've had, everyone that I ever worked with, I always told them, I want you to be stronger, faster, and better when you leave than the day you showed up. And the way that I do that is by holding them accountable to everything that they commit to, as well as to what, and that's whether they commit it to themselves, to me, to the company. One of the great things about an end is it's always a new beginning. And, you can walk through the door, or you can sit there and, have a pity party. But at the end of the day, you're either accountable, and I can't really hold somebody accountable. I can just show them their accountability to themselves, and what are you going to bring to yourself? Do you think you're worth it? You brought these goals to me. Do you think you're worth achieving them? Because if you're not trying to achieve them, then your accountability is just kind of at the end. And one last thing I want to say is, I've always said in the mortgage business, you can reinvent yourself as of tomorrow. And it's one of the great things that we have. In 3 weeks, you can be making money if you turn it around. And that's just the truth. I'm sure that there are other industries, but this is the one I know.
Yeah, no, it's a fair statement. Mr. Chapman, come to you real quick.
So true.
How easy is it to turn you around? Like when I came to you and we had our little session, I keep talking about me and you, I'm sorry, because it's the one I know really well. How easy, is everybody that easy, or are there more difficult cases to Ruth's point, turn around? Like, hey, you told me you were going to do this. I'm only holding you accountable to what you said.
I have one client that's in your space that, and I see this a lot, and maybe you guys can chime in, more seasoned mortgage professionals, but people that have been in the mortgage industry forever, but never served in a traditional sales organization. So like they came to the mortgage industry from engineering or some other background, but they never, like from day one, they got, they threw themselves or thrown into a feast or famine environment, probably a feast environment. They're doing so well. They never really had to be accountable to a traditional, from embryo to birth sales, process. Those people are not so easy because they look at what they have. There is a pain point, right? They need to hold themselves accountable to do stuff every day, sales stuff, make calls, follow up, whatever. Those are not as easy. I would trade the word easy for easier. It is easier to help anybody get breakthrough when, I wouldn't even say they're at the bottom, but they're I always do this exercise with, it's like, how quick can we get their hands open? The metaphor is you can't really put a lot into a clenched fist. And so if the heart or hand is like that, if I can sit, you can hear it in the word speak. When you hear, I'll use Christine, Ray said it blunt, Christine, my wife, my husband, if you hear a lot of that, it's going to be like that. But typically when there's a softening of the hands as they come into it, or you can ask questions that soften up, it is easier. It is not easy, but it's easier when the hands are, when they're starting to let go, the grip is, you can hear it in the word speak.
Yeah.
What's been really fun, if I'm going to jump in, he's not going to be able to ask me any questions because I'm just going to always comment, is watching, I'm a student of these guys too, watching them, because even though I'm an experienced leader in this industry, I'm a new coach, relatively speaking. And so I have to say, when we built this company, there's fundamentals to counseling, reading and writing and speaking are 3 things that are, communicative and also reparative. And so what I've watched with these guys is how much they do in the realms of those 3 areas, talking what Michael Chapman is saying. He has this incredible reaction with his clients, our clients that go to him, because he gets into areas of talking they aren't used to talking about or haven't talked about, sometimes in some instances their whole lives. Some of them wouldn't traditionally think of going to counseling through their health insurance or other means, and they stumble upon us for their businesses. And then the next thing they know, they are hands away from a resource that they really desperately need, and now is much more subtly introduced for them in a private, manner, and allows them to talk. I know Ray gives homework to these guys. And I know Michael does as well. And they give them tools. And so there's writing tools and there's, actions and actionable, things that are occurring. And so it kind of is interesting to draw back on like all the things that help heal us, writing, reading, talking, it's really an incredible thing to see.
Christine, I want to stay with you for a second. Something interesting happened last weekend, and I was getting ready for this panel, right? So I'm writing all these thoughts and everything in my head, right? Because I'm like that guy, the regional. I have everything in my head. So I'm watching football.
It's all there.
Right. I don't want to name the teams because I'm going to get angry then. It was 4th and inches. The offense decides to go for it, right? It's a hard count, right? The defense jumps and gets offsides, first down for the offense, right?
Right.
I'm using a lot of football lingo, so hopefully people can catch up with me. How do you train somebody for the obvious? Like, it's going to be a hard count. Don't jump. Wait for the ball to move because you're going to give them 5 yards and a first down. I mean, so I looked at that in the mortgage business, like there's obvious things that we as a loan officer, manager, how do you train somebody for don't do the obvious mistake?
Yeah. A lot of times we don't get people before they make the mistakes. Sadly, we're looking at the play on the playback in the locker room and we're saying, what did we do wrong here when we, jumped here and we lost the ball or we intercepted interestingly about coaching is a lot of times we're coaching backwards to go forwards, if that makes sense, where we're looking at the replay reel so that we can make the next plays in a better way. And so I would tell you that, there's a couple of things I ask for people to do with me when they start, and that's to be honest and to trust that I, am, a place of confidential and care, that they can talk and work these things out and that we can go as deep as they want to talk about things, and things kind of naturally unravel when they're willing to authentically share their weaknesses or even share a mistake they feel that they've made. A lot of times, they know the answers to correct. They're looking for affirmation. And the interesting thing about coaching is when you get people that want finite black and white answers, when people come and say, but what is the right decision?
Right.
And, should I leave my current company and go to this other company?
Right.
And of course, you can put them through exercises, pros, cons, weigh all the things, make sure they have a broad vision and they don't have tunnel vision for the one reason, emotional reason. They might be leaving a place and not looking at the bigger picture. But really, this is what I tell people all the time is we can never lose on any decision that we make if we lean in and commit fully to the choice that we make. And so many times individuals aren't present in their life. I know people all around me. I see it every day in my coworkers, sometimes in my family, and even in friends, where they want to be somewhere they're not, where they're at this place and they're wishing they were at this place, or they're hurrying their day long. They're at the morning thing, but they can't wait for church to end to get to the lunch. Then when they're at the lunch, they can't wait to get home to watch the movie. And then when they get home to watch the movie, they can't wait for the 6 o'clock. And they're just willing their time away every day, all day.
I feel like you're spying on me, Christine. I'm always like rushing to this place.
Yeah.
I get done there, I'm rushing over there. I'm like, and the one day I said to myself, why am I rushing all the time? I mean,
it's hard.
Rush.
I think the bigger thing is to just tell people when you observe that is to stay present as best that they can, to try really hard, to not, wish yourself into, circumstances. If people really give it their all in any decision that they make and they totally commit, there are no wrong choices. And that's the truth. You just have to really leap. I look now at what I just did and it takes my breath away. When I really realized the cliff I had to jump over coming out of where I was to here, I don't know that I could do it again. I don't know if I have a second run across that valley the way I just did it. Looking back now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, holy crap, I just did that. Yeah. But you just have to put your head down, and I just know you have to stick with where you're going. You have to keep your head down and keep going.
Michael Hammond, real quick. Christine said something and I kind of picked up on. I want to dive a little bit, and we're running so at it. I can't believe how quickly this interview has gone by. It's crazy. So a lot of times in life, we're afraid, for me, I should say, I'm afraid to do something because I'm afraid it's going to fail or make mistakes. right? And then as Christine was talking, I don't know why, I said to myself, you know what? A lot of times I make mistakes and it still ends up okay, right? I mean, is there a time that you can think about where you might have made a mistake, but at the end it all worked out the way it's supposed to?
Well, I think we obviously all make mistakes. I don't think there's enough time on this podcast to list all the mistakes I've made in my life and in my career, whether that's personally.
I think Michael
or
should
whether
list them. Michael, we'll wait for you to list them.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that encouragement.
Little coaching humor.
Have a one-on-one with
So, Bobby, the first mistake was me making that comment right now. But secondly, I had one of my mentors has been John Maxwell. He's written a ton of books. I had the chance to be personally mentored by him, and he wrote a book a number of years back called Failing Forward. And it has a number of great principles that you're not always going to hit your goals. You may try and really put yourself out there to accomplish something and fail miserably, whether that's leading your team and you took a step of faith and you pushed them a little too hard and maybe it didn't work out well. But if you fail forward, if you learn from that experience, great things can come from that, right? You know, a lot of people say, oh, I've been in the mortgage industry 20 years. I have this great experience. Well, if you didn't learn anything in each one of those individual years, then it's basically you have 1 year of experience in the mortgage industry. You've just been doing the same damn thing, the same dumb thing for 20 years in a row. If you have learned experience, and learned experience doesn't always have to be myself learning it. I can learn from other people, right? Yeah. We tell our kids, don't touch the hot stove. Now, some of them are very hard-headed and they're going to touch the hot stove and they'll learn they'll never do that again. But a number of people can learn when somebody says, Bobby, don't touch that hot stone. It's going to burn your hand. It's going to really hurt. So I'm a big believer in learned experiences. If you can fail forward and learn from it, think of how many times a lot of the biggest challenges or struggles in our careers turned out to be probably the best thing that ever happened. I took over as CEO of Mortgage Cadence. I was flying every Monday through Friday from Michigan to Detroit. I had a young family, was trying to build a house in Denver, and the mortgage meltdown hit.
Wow.
Awesome. Couldn't sell my house here. Didn't want to just throw the keys in, right? I thought I hit the pinnacle of my career. Finally, you know, I was the youngest CEO in the history of that company. I was super fired up, and it all comes crumbling down. Now, if you lean into it, that's when Next Level Advisors was formed, and we've been in business now for 13 years, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened. Going through that experience, I didn't feel that at the time, but leaning in, learning from those failures and failing forward, great things can happen.
Guys, we are coming to an end, and that was such an excellent story. I can't believe how quickly this time went by. This could have been a 2-hour event. I wanted to go around the real quick as possible, because I want the audience to get something from this that is tangible. So I want one tip that any loan officer could do for 2021. I mean, just one tip. And we'll start off with Christine, and we'll go around, and that's the way my screen is set up. I'm sorry. So Christine, just one tip that a loan officer could execute today that could change their 2021 for them.
Yeah, I right now am telling professionals obviously to pay attention to their core business, which, you know, is their purchase and realtor affiliated business. But even more than that, because of the year that we've had, I'm telling them to be mindful in building their business plans in 2021 so that they truly have a work-life balance. And I think there is a lot of people this year that are suffering from not taking care of that. And so I just hope that, you know, they can figure out what that looks like, and in a way where it's hard not to pick every apple up off the ground in this industry when the harvest comes. And yet, you know, I think it's vital that we not neglect things that are going to be costly, you know, marriages, children's advice, you know, and just this time, this God-given time that's been put before us this year in a weird way. I'm not going to change my company name just because it's 2020. I've had to suffer through that. I thought I was brilliant in December of 2019, and now I've paid that 12 months over. So thanks for having us today.
No. Ray, what about you? One tip for a loan officer or executive, maybe?
Yeah, I would just say get a coach.
Wow.
I mean, we all know what we know.
I love that.
Some of us know what we don't know, so we know some experts we check with. But it's that area where we don't know what we don't know, that there's gold buried there, and there are also traps hidden there. And so to invite another person, particularly an outsider, to put their eyes and ears on your world, you'll discover things that you don't know that you don't know.
Excellent tip. Excellent tip. Ruth Lee, one tip.
I would say make sure you are working on your business as much as you are working on your files. And because your business is what will extend through 2021. The Wickle file, it'll be gone in 2 weeks.
Good point. Good point. Michael Hammond?
I'm a firm believer that no matter where you're at in an organization, everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you want to improve your leadership for 2021, go volunteer at a volunteer organization where nobody has to listen to you. And then you'll really find out what kind of leadership chops you have. When they can walk out, when they don't have to listen to you, when all your volunteers are gone, you learn very quickly how to engage, how to work with people. It's probably the best school I've ever seen for growing leadership skills.
What a great point. What a great point. Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, go teach Sunday school or try to get a bunch of Sunday school teachers to show up on Sunday morning. Right, Michael?
Exactly.
That's a great point.
I think, yeah, I mean, just for the industry, but for anybody, but, right now, the mortgage industry is a great place to be for the obvious. And so if there's pressure is always a good thing, especially when your optics are right-sized. And I would say if you've got pressure that you don't know the genesis or where it's coming from, and it's sort of like, well, it's, I can't turn them fast enough, blah, 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 blah. It's time to do a values assessment. And that's back to Ray. I mean, sometimes we need somebody to say, those are not your values, Christine. Your values are really this. From what you just told me, these are right. So a values assessment, especially if you're bouncing it off somebody who's unemotionally or is emotionally unbiased to the outcome, which is typically a coach, can be very helpful because it'll clear you up really quick, typically.
All right.
What are your values now?
I have one question for you guys. So if you can help me out here, I thought I'd ask you guys. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So listen, if you're listening on a podcast, go to YouTube and figure this out, okay? So this is a marketing question for you geniuses. So this is the thing that we put together. We have two options for our cover, right? So this is option one. Can anybody see it, by the way?
Yeah.
Yep.
I assume you guys can all see this, right? I'm hoping you can see it. So we got that one. And then we got option number two, which is this one. So give me your pick.
First.
Go with the cartoon.
Hopefully you guys can see option number two, right? Ray's got
I think it's good because Dixie didn't come on, and I think that looks like Ruth. So I
may have to get my marketing guy to redo Ruth's face on that one.
No, it's great. It's really great. That's great.
I wanted to give you guys something special because once again, you guys are the 24th episode. This was my goal for 2020. You guys have been incredible in my life. I appreciate every single one of you guys. And I know that you guys are all doing your best for all of us on the 2020 schedule. And I know that I wouldn't have been here without you guys. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on Laugh, Lend, and Eat. This has been an amazing episode for me. Like I'm not joking when I tell you guys, this feels like it's been 5 minutes. It doesn't feel like it's been like, I guess, 45 minutes at this point. So we've gone way over. And I know Michael's got a hard stop at 3:00. So thank you all once again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Staffing Services. We have enjoyed all the comments we have been receiving. Please keep them coming. To be notified of any updates, please be sure to subscribe to Laugh, Lend, and Eat on the listening platform of your choice. Thank you for listening and have a great day.